For Louisiana versus all y'all, Jarrett Roser wrapping up our tour around the state to look at some of the top high school football programs for this fast approaching 2024 season. And last but certainly not least, the River Parishes with 8 teams to look at, but some great teams with so much tradition and so much success, including a lot of recent success, and not a lot of better people to bring in to talk about some River Parish football than Eric Richey, VSN, River Parish football. Got the new show, Up the River, Down the Bayou, that folks should check out. And so, Eric, man, I appreciate your time so much to talk about some of these fantastic teams that you cover so well.
My pleasure, and it's an honor to be on your show, man. I've been watching you just grind and hustle and do just a fabulous job covering high school football. Man, God, at least a decade that I've bumped into you at games, but you do a terrific job. I'm just happy to be on the show. And again, I stepped away from the River Parishes as far as hardcore coverage, like we did with the website riverparishfootball.com for a decade, right? 2010 to 19, kind of focused more on just VSN, but now I'm getting back into the River Parishes. So I'm going to give you what I got, but you're right. You talk about 8 teams being so successful. 3 different River Parish teams make it to the Dome in each of the last 2 years. 2 years ago, all 3 of them came back in the fourth quarter and won. Last year, all 3 of them lost leads in the fourth quarter, and St. James, Riverside, and who else? Who was the last team?
St. Charles.
St. Charles. Wayne Stein going for the three-peat. All 3 of those teams lost fourth quarter leads and ended up on the losing end. But again, as you know, state runner-up, such a great accomplishment, but it's tough to tell those kids and those coaches, especially when they were all leading in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of those teams are going to be hungry as ever after some heartbreak to end those seasons, and talented once again, well coached once again. And I mean, let's start with the trio you have in 5A with that District 8 5A, a mix of some of the River Parish teams as well as further down the bayou. And in the true River Parish group, you have Destrehan, that obviously a state championship a couple of years ago and still very talented. East St. John, that has battled them as well as anyone the last couple of years. And then Hanville with the new coach, Greg Boyne, who knows that Destrehan program extremely well, obviously taking the reins over across the river. What are you seeing from that group, Destrehan, East St. John, and Hanville, as we start 2024?
Well, let's start with Destrehan, right? And you're talking about, the health scare with Marcus Scott a year ago. He wasn't able to finish out the year with the team physically. And ironically, Greg Boyne kind of took over there at the end. But Coach Scott is back healthy. And I saw something the other day. I think it was 14-0 Productions put up the senior classes that have – the senior class at Destrehan hasn't lost a regular season game. It's incredible what Destrehan has done in the regular season, not just during the Marcus Scott era, but back when I covered him in the Steve Robichaux era. Same thing. They would go 10-0 almost every year in the regular season and make deep runs. So again, they're loaded, right? They got. I'm sure you covered, obviously, with all the recruiting you do with Thomas and Philip Wright and their dual announcement, and then Philip had to switch and go join Thomas at LSU. Hey, listen to this story just the other day. So I live in Destrehan. So the sports pub, if you coming on the airline, you take the left to go into Destrehan. So the sports pub's literally right behind me. Like when the cooks go out to smoke out the back door, that's my back door. I'm like, hey, you got the special. Anyway, so I went over there. So I had lunch with Frank Monica and Jason Dewey, and they're back for a 3rd year of their podcast, Let's Be Frank. And while we're there, here comes Jace Thomas and his dad, Fred Thomas. I'm like, could it get any more River Parish football than this? And coach is looking at it, and Jace is, he looks like a Division I, football player. Funny story with him. He played soccer, my daughter's first sports team. She played on the same team with him when they were 4. And Emma's first venture into sports, she quit 2 games into it. Quit. I don't want soccer, Dad. I'm out. So luckily, and I'll brag as a dad, she's an all-state setter now at Mount Carmel. So it worked out for her. But so you think about it. So Thomas, right, in the defensive back, they're loaded. Wide receivers galore over there with Philip Wright leading the charge, and there's so many other guys, right? Mack, Wilford, Thiel, the 4th. But Jackson Fields, man, I don't know if you've seen this guy play in person. My next door neighbor over here played in JV and was the backup quarterback. I'm like, aren't you going to get any time? He's like, this other guy, this guy's Jackson's pretty good. And then we see how good he is. He's literally one of the best drop back straight passers in the state of Louisiana. So, I mean, I really think Destrehan's, ready for another run. And I think it starts with them. So we bring up Greg Boyne, right? Hanville's new head coach after 21 years at Destrehan. The thing I didn't know, because he just obviously bleeds Destrehan football, he's a Hanville grad. Did you know that? I did not know that.
Yeah, not until all of this came up with the coaching opportunity over there.
Yeah, so he is a Hanville grad, and again, his daughters both played volleyball and beach volleyball with my daughter, so we became friends that way. Greg Boyne's wife also is a big volleyball player. But look, they got a quarterback situation over there as well as St. James, and I know we'll talk about them in a little while. Nakhan and Teague. All right, Nakhan is the junior. He's going to start tonight in the scrimmage, ironically enough, against St. James. And then Teague, he's a sophomore. Coach Boyne says you're going to see him at the Jamboree. And I said, is there a leader in the clubhouse? He goes, I'll tell you after the Jamboree. So he's literally going to wait to make that quarterback call in week one. And I know, again, with your recruiting, CJ Smith, who committed to Southeastern, very talented running back, but kind of under the radar. I hadn't heard a lot about him. And I asked Coach Boyne about him today. He said he's not going to play today, but he is very good. And he's not the only one. Like Hanville and Destrehan always seem to have three talented tailbacks. And according to Coach Boyne, that's the case this year as well. So you think about it, under Coach Luquette the last 2 years, I mean, not Hanville-esque seasons, right? Under 500 the last 2 years. And, Coach Luquette, obviously, he's a Destrehan guy, right? He graduated from Destrehan, was a quarterback, and just like Coach Boyne, an offensive coordinator, a quarterback coach before he went on to Woodlawn and then came back to Hanville. But I really think Hanville gets back on track this year, Jarrett, and has a winning season. And it's not going to take long, I think, for Coach Boyne to kind of implement, his offensive skills and, the great talent that program has. I think they make a run as well.
Good deal. And East St. John, have you had a chance to stop by them recently? What's kind of the outlook for them? I mean, they've been a team that's kind of right there, had some nice regular seasons, had a chance a couple of years ago to make a little bit of a playoff run. I know they have some key guys to replace. How much do you know about the Wildcats right now in that district?
Well, just looking back, we talked about Destrehan, being the senior class undefeated in the regular season, the one team that's really come close, right? Hanville and Destrehan, like the great tradition, Hanville hasn't won against Destrehan since Puka in 2017. So, that rivalry has been one-sided. East St. John really has been the threat for Destrehan to lose a game in district play. Brandon Brown, I think they started 7-0 last year, and they always seem to have a really good start, and then you just kind of, hit the wall late. And, when I say hit the wall, you're playing in that District 8-5A. There's just, monsters like the Catholic League each week, it seems like. So, Brandon Brown does have a lot of guys to replace. I have not made it over there yet. We absolutely will with, again, the new show, and I appreciate you mentioning it. Up the river, down the bayou. Can you tell we just started? But, I have absolutely loved what Brandon Brown has done. Gone to, a practice every year. Even though we haven't done River Parish football since 2019, the website, I make an annual Thanksgiving Day run, a tour around the river parishes for teams that are still alive. And there's always like 4 or 5 teams. And I go to Destrehan first at 7 a.m. for some donuts. And, they have their little tradition, St. Charles, and so I make it right down Airline Highway and stop and reserve at East St. John. And Brandon Brown just conducts himself so well. I'm such a fan of him and what he's been able to do. And I just wish that team success in the postseason. It's hard to believe that team has only won, one state championship. All the years with Ryan Perilou and what he was able to do, think about it. 1980 is the only time they won a state championship. Timmy Bird, the basketball coach, was the quarterback of that team. Phil Greco was the coach who went on to be the head coach at Nichols and the AD at Rummel. But I root for East St. John. I don't have a whole lot of knowledge this year of the current roster, but I'm pulling for Coach Brown.
There you go. And looking at a couple of great teams in 4A, we'll kind of take them one at a time, two different districts. But we'll start with 9-4A, where St. Charles Catholic lives, and a team that has been as steady of an expectation of they're going to make the Dome year in and year out, and had the state championships in the middle of that, ended last season with a heartbreak, and now jump up to 4A. And so that'll be a big storyline, watching how the Comets transition to this higher classification level. But they have been, again, so steady. And I know you've had a chance to visit with Coach Stein and company here recently. What's the outlook for St. Charles in this new district that includes Archbishop Shaw and company, and this new classification level in the big picture?
And can you, I mean, Coach Stein not only wants to go to 4A, but they really want to go to 5A. This is like the first step. And even just a few years ago, he was talking about St. Charles he wants it to be one of the best schools overall, sports-wise, baseball, basketball, all the sports. He wants St. Charles to be thought of in that upper echelon of programs, athletic programs in the state. And he told me a couple of years ago, the goal was to get to 5A. So that's lofty expectations, and it's incredible. I think they have over 100 players out there. So I looked at a stat the other day, because U-High is one of our VSN teams, and U-High has been at least to the semifinals. Jarrett, I want to say 12 years in a row. Is that? I mean, it seems outlandish, but I mean, they've made a run like 10, 12 years in a row, at least to the semifinals, and I think they've won 4 state championships over the last 12 years. So now suddenly the team that they always scrimmage with, the traditional U-High and St. Charles scrimmage, well, now you're talking about St. Charles is right there. St. Charles has been to the state championship 5 years in a row, right? They were going for a three-peat. They had lost to LCA, was their nemesis, the last couple of years of Coach Monica. But Brady St. Pierre, Kyle Cannon, two huge names that they're going to have to replace. A sophomore quarterback, I think right now, Leandre LeBlanc, is the guy that they really, really like. Coach Stein talked about his athleticism. He's just a sophomore, but he's already been in the war, because we talk about St. Charles as a talented football team. Think about what they've done in baseball, right? And Coach Stein has led that team to state championships. So LeBlanc played last year and played a key role as a freshman. So he kind of has that, what Coach Stein refers to, kind of has that he's more mature than his age and his year. Skylar Edwards, a junior running back, is a guy also that you're going to hear a lot about this year, and really think, I think St. Charles, and again, the way they ended the season last year, losing the lead. Remember, he goes for it on 4th down, they get stuffed, and Calvary Baptist right down, boom, touchdown. So you're like, oh my God, did that just happen? And then I know you were at the Dome quite a bit. I don't know if you remember what Coach Stein said. He's like, I'm trying to think how he said it, but it was kind of like, wow, like, these guys got to learn to lose, because he's up there with like 4 players that are all baseball players too, that had won 3 state championships in baseball, 2 in football. And this is going to be a learning experience, but absolutely fuel to the Comets' fire to get back to the Dome. But man, to step up to 4A, they got Lutcher week 2. I think they got Newman week 1. They're going to play Dunham. Obviously, they're playing a 5A team in Terrebonne this year. Belchase and Shaw in that district that you were referring to. So, man, it is going to be a challenge. But ever since we started riverparishfootball.com in 2010, and I'm in Coach Monica's office, and we're getting ready to do an interview, and here comes like a little skinny guy, 5'5", 100 pounds. I'm like, is he a ball boy, or, oh, that's my outside linebacker. I'm like, no, it's not. He goes, yes, it is. And then they compete, right? They win nine regular season games every year, and now they're a perennial state champion appearance every year. So, man, again, Wayne Stein is so intense and such a good coach, the defensive mind, and he's got some great offensive coaches with him now. Man, it's going to be fun to watch. It's really going to be fun to watch them.
The other 4A team you mentioned in there talking about the outlook at some of these regular season matchups. You've got Lutcher in 8-4A, another team that is trying to get back to the top of the mountain where they were just a couple of years ago. Another team that's talented once again and has a new quarterback, but someone that head coach certainly knows and trusts quite a bit. Tell us about the Bulldogs and the expectations for them, because I think those are sky high in their own right this year.
Maybe the first time in the storied tradition of Letcher football that a father-son combo has been the starting quarterback at Letcher. Dwayne Jenkins, starting quarterback at Letcher in 96. Obviously, he was, Tim Detillier was his mentor, and he just learned and learned and learned. I mean, I don't know of anybody who loves the game of football like Dwayne Jenkins, and learning it, and, you just studying different offenses. He's a brilliant offensive mind. And then I told you about the Thanksgiving Day River Parish tour I take every year. And there's two little Jenkins boys playing catch, or, the years that he went to the Dome at St. James, and then the next year at Letcher, there's Zach and, his little brother. And now Zach is the starting quarterback, right? Last year, he split time with Quinn Smith, the big tall guy who was a great baseball pitcher, is a Southeastern baseball guy. But, basically Zach's role last year was that short yardage. We need 3-4 yards, kind of, run it in. Well, he's the man now. And he is very, very confident. It's so funny. It's, again, my daughter is a senior as well this year. And it's just, they're so mature, right? And when I watch Emma on the volleyball court, she's, telling players where to go. And it's very similar to what Zach Jenkins is doing right now. He is a leader of that football team. He has taken on that role. Coach Jenkins and Zach, they both aren't shying away from, my dad's the coach, I'm the quarterback. Zach Jenkins has earned this spot, right? Coach Dwayne could have put him in last year and been the guy, but that wasn't what was best for the Bulldogs football program. It's going to be fun watching him. And look, they have got running backs, receivers, and that's just on the offensive side. Defensive, Sterling is Rashad just committed to Houston, and a great relationship with Willie Fritz, another get from our area, headed to Houston. It is going to be a fun run for Letcher as well. Obviously, just like you get relationships with the coaches, the players, the programs, right? We're not, we're, as journalists, we report on what's happening. I do more of the kind of like the feature stuff, right? I kind of preview games, put mics on coaches, and kind of try to spotlight as many players as I can. But man, you just pull for them, right? I don't think, out of the 8 River Parish teams, there's nobody I don't pull for, but there's some that you really pull for. And I just hope great things are ahead for the Bulldogs. And it's something that Zach and his dad and his younger brother can look back on, years from now and just have an enjoyable experience. But they're going to be fun to watch. And I went to practice last week, and I saw talent all over the place. And they got some good offensive linemen. Defensively, they're short on numbers, I think. I think if there's like kind of a weakness, it might be on that side. But, those dingoes is what they call them at Letcher. They've just got an attitude, and I look for Letcher to do big things too, but 4A is loaded again. He says Opelousas is clearly the team to beat in Dwayne Jenkins' mind. It's rare that a coach says it. I usually, my last question is kind of like your keys to the season. What do you have to do to be successful to get to your goals? And he goes, well, we all know that the team to beat is Opelousas, and we gotta handle that. And I'm like, okay. So that was unsolicited, that answer from Coach Dwayne. But, they're going to be focused, and, they're going to, study and be ready game plan wise each and every week. And it's just going to be fun to watch that team.
Their Cross River rival, St. James, down there in 7-3A. It's a small district for those guys with Berwick, Donaldsonville, Patterson. St. James was, as you mentioned at the beginning, one of those teams that was so close last year to winning another state championship, but had that heartache where it was Union Parish's time on a pivotal conversion play at the end there. Yep. And the Wildcats have a lot of seniors to replace, a lot of leadership, a lot of talent, and they're a young group this year. But I know Coach Davis and company that those guys expect to be in that dome every year at this point, because they've got an awful lot of young talent that feels like they're ready to surprise some people.
we all in our business, and you've got the terrific shots. I brought it up before we started the interview last year. Holy Cross, time expires, bomb, touchdown against John Curtis to put him down one right in front of you, right? You're in the right spot. Like when Puka, when they beat Acadiana in 2017, that was unheard of, right? Destrehan always ended their season at Acadiana, and it was overtime, and everyone on the planet knew Puka was going to get the ball in the overtime. And, you try to position yourself, and I was, behind the coaches, and I got just such a money shot, right? I could see Puka, but I could see, Coach Salt and Coach Silva and everybody, getting so excited. So I did that same thing last year with St. James. So, the touchdown was, for Union Parish. They were going for it down here. So if they hold them, St. James wins. So I'm right behind Levante Davis. And thank God the technology, like this is as big as my camera is now, right? So I am like right there. And I got the opposite reaction of I just lost the state championship. So nobody's ever seen that video. I've shown, people at, my house, but I'm not going to put that out there. The worst moment of the season, but so close last year. And look, Braden Williams, man, you talk about a leader and was Mr. Everything. He was such an instrumental part of that offense. So that's going to be a big thing to watch this year. Ronald Berrio, who is a former East St. John interim head coach, and he has been at St. James for quite some time, sometimes offensive coordinator, now offensive line coach. I spoke with him earlier today. A key for St. James, when you lose a leader that was so instrumental and you got two guys you're not sure of, right? Either one of these guys could step up once the bullets start flying, once the games start. But right now it's a giant unknown for Coach Davis.
In 1A, you got a couple of teams to wind down the river parishes in that same district in 10-1A. West St. John, obviously, it's been tough for them since COVID and the storm and all these things that have happened in recent years. Riverside Academy, meanwhile, in terms of the select side, has established itself as one of the top, consistent contenders for potential state championship type level, a deep playoff team. And they came up just short to Southern Lab last year. They have to replace, I know, some guys in the trenches, but have a lot back for Coach Roussel and company as well, including a kind of dynamite and a small package in that backfield that I'm sure you'll talk about. But tell me about those Rebels and where they stand heading into this year, and if you have anything on the Rams as well.
Coach Lee Roussel was good enough to be one of our first guests on our first show this week. So he told us point blank, the most important part of this season will be the development of an inexperienced offensive line, right? He feels, skilled position. He's got the studs. You talk about the little man in small package, number one, Dedrick Lassity, over 2,500 total yards last year, 42 touchdowns. And in the state championship, he lined up like in the Wildcat and threw a touchdown pass. Mm-hmm. So their quarterback, who again was just so young last year, just a sophomore, hadn't really played much football, Brock Bourgeois, he's back now with a year experience. And think about the year experience. Oh, we made it all the way to the freaking state championship game. So, that young man under fire learned a lot. So he's back. He's got wide receivers. He's talking about, I remember, and that was the first time I really heard about it, except the preview, I think the week before, he talked about in the state championship game at wide receiver, he started 3 wide receivers. 2 of them were 8th graders, and 1 of them was a freshman. So they're all back. And he's got a transfer in too. He said, keep your eye out for Nehemiah Phillip, who is a transfer, who said he's going to mix right in with those other receivers. So you got a stud running back, an experienced quarterback, 4 wide receivers to throw the ball to. So the offensive line, that's going to be key. Another guy that we might have forgot about last year because he tore his MCL in the season opener, Martell Henry, up front defensive lineman. Coach Lee says this is a guy who's going to be playing Saturdays. So that's a guy we need to really pay attention to. And then his nose guard is a sophomore, Ahmad Cage, who's got a lot of lineage. I think both his uncle and his father were both stud defensive players as well. He said he's got 3 of his 4 linebackers back, and he's got a defensive secondary led by Caden Brumfield, who really had a good camp. So listen to all those guys we just said. So, they, 9-2 under Lee Roussel his first year coming out of Nichols. And obviously he's a River Parish guy. He was a starting center at Letcher, coached under Tim Detillier, coached for a few years under Coach Monica, went to Rummel under Jay Roth, was part of 2 state championships there, goes to Nichols where he learns to be a college football coach. Now he's back, but nobody saw a trip for Riverside to the state championship in year 2. And another big part of that, and I know you know him as well, is Chris Lashney, who was the defensive coordinator under the Bill Stubbs era. And then he went on to Southeastern to coach under Coach Selfo. And now he's back. So that's a formidable 1-2 punch in the River Parish. When you talk about Lee Roussel and Chris Lashney at Riverside, they're going to be a team to reckon with in 1A. And again, I expect them to make another deep run.
And then, just giving a little bit of love to that West St. John program. There's so much history there, so much tradition. It's been tough to watch them have some of these down years, but hopefully they can get a chance to kind of take a positive step back in the right direction, because it's a lot of fun when they are at the top of their game. And so it'd be great to see them progress back that direction, hopefully.
What a traditional power. From the Lori DuPont era, and then Robert Valdez, takes them to a state championship. And then Brandon Walters, who was one of the assistants for Coach Valdez, when Coach Valdez and Coach Davis both go to Scotlandville, Coach Walters takes them to the promised land, 2017 state champs. But after that, it just kind of fell apart. And the last couple of years, there's been, questions on who's in charge and the administration and the coaching. So I need to get back to West St. John because in all fairness, I haven't been there in a few years. So I haven't spoke to the coaches. I don't know the players like I used to know. But again, like you said, it's fun when West St. John is winning. And, that's always, one of the greatest rivalries was the Railroad Classic, when they would play against St. James, and a beautiful, big trophy. And, usually a train would go by West St. John right during the game. So I'm pulling for them. I don't know too much about them. I'm going to dive into it. And the next time I see you, I'll give you my West St. John knowledge. But, hoping for the best for those guys, because there's always great kids that we've covered through the years. And, we want them to be back. The River Parish is complete when West St. John and all 8 schools are jamming. When we started River Parish football 2010, it was St. James, the team that was left out. After Coach Gailey, the late great Coach Gailey left, there was 2.5 years they didn't win a game. St. James was 0-10, 0-9, and finally, and they got Coach Jenkins and they won a couple games, and that was Lowell Narcisse his freshman year, and then they returned to prominence. So let's hope the same thing for West St. John.
No doubt. Well, Eric, man, I appreciate your time and your perspective and information and everything so much.
You got it. Thanks for having me on. And I promise you the next time, after I get a couple of weeks under my belt of covering these teams, I'll have some better info, some more current names, and I'll be looking forward to it. I'm thrilled to be back.
Likewise, man. Looking forward to it. Again, he's Eric Richey, VSN, and we talked about it a couple of times, that new show Up the River, Down the Bayou, where you can see some spotlights on some of these great teams. The first episode just out in the last couple of days, so make sure you check that out for more information throughout the season. For Louisiana vs. Loyola, Jarrett Roser, thanks again to Eric for his time, and thanks to everyone for tuning in.